As consumers, we are bombarded by it at every turn, like the Incredible Hulk being bombarded by gamma rays. But what makes some media endure, while others are banished to the forgotten black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again? Who or what decides this? Hetero life mates Steve and Yahel want to know, and they want to know now. This is Obscurity Now. And welcome back, Obscurians, to another episode of Obscurity Now, the show where we take a look at weird and almost forgotten pieces of media, and we decide if they should be remembered for all of human history or tossed into the black void of obscurity, never to be heard from again. My name is Steve, and with me is a man who's always asking his boy Ice-T for favors.
It's actually, I would prefer to be addressed as the president of the assistant district attorney club.
That was a fun line.
Yeah, there's quite a few quips and one-liners in the film that we're going to cover today, Ricochet, which I believe was the inspiration behind Ricochet the wrestler's name.
I don't think it is, but I
don't think it is.
Yeah,
either.
I thought he was called Ricochet because he bounces off of everything. But if you think about it, the title of this movie doesn't really there's no ricochets in it. I guess you could say that, how can you just so John Lithgow, he got thrown in prison first, and then he comes around and ruins Denzel Washington's life. So it's like a ricochet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like a what goes around comes around kind of a thing.
Exactly. Yes. Man, boy, does it. But so should we just jump right into it? Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Before we do, I always forget to encourage people to subscribe. That's always good. And by the time people are listening to this, I'll be at San Diego Comic-Con trying to sell the only copy ever of Obscurity Now, one episode on CD, and it's the only one short enough, yes, where we made fun of Darkhawk #1. I don't have a DVD burner. I borrowed an old laptop from my wife's aunt, which allowed me to burn some CDs. And yeah, this is the only one that would fit. So It says the best.
You could have probably just burnt. You probably just could have put MP3s on there, because most modern CD players will play MP3 files. And then you could have put on the whole catalog. But
onto a CD.
Maybe if you would have consulted with me, Steve. But go ahead, keep creating physical media of us.
I will,
unbeknownst to me,
probably never do that again. It costs way more than I thought just to make a few random CDs. Just a bit. It wasn't really expensive. More just like a pain in the ass. But really.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah, really the whole purpose of this is so someone sees it on my table at the convention and goes, "What's Obscurity Now?" And I go, "Oh, I'm glad you asked." And then I can tell them all about it, and hopefully they'll scan the QR code to,
nice.
check us out. I don't think anyone is actually going to buy CDs of Obscurity Now or Ray Can't Sleep. They're really just there to start the conversation about the podcast themselves. But all right, so enough about that. Did you have anything? We didn't even talk about the fact that we're should we even mention that we're 100% job free here on Obscurity Now? Is that
Yeah, you were recently vacated from your job, and I was laid off. So pretty exciting times.
We may be sitting in the gutter, but we're looking at the stars, Yahel. Looking at the stars. Let's go ahead and do this thing. It's time for Ricochet.
Welcome to your feature presentation.
Alrighty. Ricochet premiered October 4th, 1991. It's rated R and clocks in at 1 hour and 42 minutes. I don't think you don't really have any history. You've never seen Ricochet before, have you?
I'd never even heard of this movie.
Yeah, it's weird. It's you've got an A+ cast. This is obviously like a Hollywood production, which we're about to see who was in the cast and who made it. And I've never heard of it, and it kept popping up on Tubi. And like just looking at the cover, like what kind of movie do you think you're getting by looking at the Ricochet cover? Like with Denzel on there pointing his gun.
I mean, I would just think it's a cop action movie, which I mean, it starts off very pedestrian. I was actually pretty bored in the first half, to be honest, to the point where I started watching it like at 1.3 speed. But yeah, and that is kind of what you get at first.
Right. I mean, I think, you see Denzel, he's like mostly known for drama, I would say. And and he's holding his gun. I'm just like, oh, this is going to be some sort of, crime drama, basically. And yeah, it starts off like that until he takes off his clothes. I'd say, like, at least that was like sort of the first sort of sign to me that this was going to be a little bit more than your standard police procedural. But before we go too deep, like, do you consider yourself a Denzel Washington fan? I mean, he's got Equalizer 3 coming out. I've never seen any of those movies.
Oh, I was gonna say, for some reason I thought you were like obsessed with the Equalizer movies or something.
No,
because you just knew a lot of random stuff about it. You're like, you knew other stuff that guy had written. You sounded excited.
I mean, I want to watch him eventually. I just think it's interesting that this 80s show, The Equalizer, still exists like to this day. That other people just sort of took up the mantle and went with it. But what about Denzel? Do you remember like the first Denzel Washington movie you ever saw?
I don't know if this is the first one of his I saw, but the first one I can remember is Glory.
Oh, me too.
and I think it's because we watched it in school.
Right. And I remember that film the most because a man's head gets blown off by a cannonball in the film.
Yeah, it's a very sad movie too.
Yeah, no, head explosions. But no, yeah, I think that's basically like most people's introduction, at least who are our age, to Denzel Washington. And I think maybe the Pelican Brief. I think he was in that one.
Yeah, I think he was. But I think at that point he was already a pretty big star. I think by the time Pelican Brief came out. But I don't know. I'm not like the. I mean, I like Denzel. He's obviously a very good actor. But I'm not like, oh, I'm gonna go see this movie because Denzel is in it.
Right.
But I'm not really like that about any actor for the most part.
Right. I mean, I agree with most of the stuff that you said there, and basically, he's in like too much high class stuff for me. Until I saw this film,
I think that might be my problem.
Yeah. Like there's nothing. I mean, he does good work, and the movies he's in are pretty good. It's just most of them are forgettable. Obviously, aside from Glory and its head exploding scene. I remember I really liked that. I think it's called Flight, where he played like a
that was pretty good. I saw that.
I really
the alcoholic
pilot. Yes, that's what it should have been called. Like more people would have shown
alcoholic pilot, starring Denzel Washington.
Even better, Alcoholic Airlines. It's like you're getting a drunk pilot with every flight.
And it's using like the American Airlines logo, like a rip off of it.
Yeah, see, what's brilliant.
Did you know though that in Pelican Brief that John Lithgow is also in Pelican Brief?
I didn't. I completely forgot that he was in there.
Yeah, he's in it, and Casey Biggs is in it of Star Trek Deep Space Nine fame.
Wow. Okay. Well, I hope someone appreciates that. But all right, here's the synopsis for Ricochet. A district attorney is terrorized by the criminal he put away years ago when he was a cop. And this is directed by Russel Mulchahey, and I'm so glad we finally get to talk about him. He directed Highlander 1 and 2, The Shadow, and some of his later stuff is Resident Evil Extinction. I've never seen that one. Have you watched that one by any chance?
Resident Evil Extinction?
Yeah, it's like the one...
I might have.
Yeah, it takes place in the future, like a Mad Max style Resident Evil or something.
Oh, yeah, I do think I saw that one.
Do you remember?
And I think I saw the one after, because I think they like tie into each other.
Is Extinction any good? But I've always wanted to see it.
I don't remember, man. Like, cause the thing is, like with these Resident Evil movies, I because they didn't just name them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right, whatever. Like, I can't remember which ones I saw, like what order I saw them in. I have no opinions. But when I watch those Resident Evil movies, I go in not expecting a good movie.
Oh yeah, they're usually pretty bad for sure.
Yeah, it's just, I want to watch something dumb that I can turn my brain off. That'll have some interesting action scenes, because there's usually like a few like over the top, kind of dumb, fun action sequences. So that's what I expect from my Resident Evil.
But are you familiar with any of the works from Russel Mulchahey? I mean, aside from Highlander 1 and 2?
No, Steve. Tell me about your surrogate father's career.
I wish. I mean, that's basically it. I mean, he started out directing tons of like classic music videos. He did like Duran Duran, I think Rio. Just like he was like the guy back in the '80s, and then he did because he's Australian. He did a horror movie called Razorback, and then somehow worked his way to Highlander. And it looks like he's still working pretty steadily today. The last thing he did was Teen Wolf, the movie of the TV series. So not Teen Wolf, the movie from the 80s. It's Teen Wolf, the movie of the TV series. Do you understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah, I do understand what you're saying, because they used to run commercials for it on Paramount Plus, I think. I'm pretty sure that's what it was on. But I did see he also directed the straight-to-DVD Scorpion King 2, Rise of a Warrior, that has one of the lowest IMDb scores I've ever seen, 3.8. That is...
Yeah, he's had an interesting career with peaks and valleys, but still continues to work pretty steadily, it seems. But anyway, enough of Russel Mulchahey, though one day we will return and do Highlander 2, because it's been on the list for a long time. But anyway, moving on to the writer, the guy who actually did the screenplay, because the story was actually conceived by some other guys. I'll get to them in a second. But this is written by Steve E DeSousa. We've already discussed his work on the Cadillacs and Dinosaurs episode, but here's a refresher in case you don't know who this legend is. He did Die Hard 1 and 2. He wrote and directed Street Fighter. That's right, the Street Fighter with Van Damme. He also directed Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Running Man, and an episode of Knight Rider. And I mean, I could go on and on about Steve E DeSousa. And a little trivia about Ricochet here. In your research, did you see that this actually takes place in the Die Hard universe?
No.
Yep. And
why? I mean, there's no connection that I saw. But...
Oh, you didn't look hard enough, my good man. The blonde reporter, her name escapes me at the moment. She plays the same character in Die Hard. So there you go.
Oh, okay.
There's your connection. But doesn't it feel...
Can't wait for the Ricochet Die Hard team-up movie.
Shared universe. It's the DeSousa-verse is what it is. But, yeah, I mean, Steven E. DeSousa, I mean, he was the man through the 80s and the 90s. But the story for Ricochet here was actually first conceived by Fred Deckard and Mino Mias. Are you familiar with the work of Fred Decker by any chance?
Not really.
All right.
But I'm sure you're going to enlighten me. Oh. Well, no, that's not true. I did know that he had written, or I think he had like a story maybe that was bought for Star Trek Enterprise, or a few of them, because I do remember recognizing his name, so naturally I checked to see... Anytime I recognize any name, Steve, whether it's on an IMDb page, if it's in the newspaper, at a family reunion, I check to see if they were on Star Trek.
If it's spray painted on the side of the wall, you'll check to see.
If I recognize it, I'm like, were they on Star Trek?
DJ Beatbox. Let me go check. He was in Star Trek.
Yeah, I just confirmed. He has 3 writing credits on Star Trek Enterprise. And but that's not the last Star Trek connection that we'll have.
Oh, interesting. Well, Fred Decker, aside from being a pretty good writer, he had an awesome career going for a minute there as a director. tell me you've at least seen the Halloween classic Monster Squad.
I've never seen Monster Squad.
Well, we're gonna have to do that one this Halloween because it's great. Then he has another horror film, Night of the Creeps, and then like those were like two sort of cult classic films that like everybody, I mean, I guess aside from yourself who's never seen it, hold in really high regard. And then he did RoboCop 3, and it bombed, and he never directed again. Poor bastard. But oh well. And that Mino Mejas guy, apparently the only other writing he ever did was on Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And I guess he didn't really have a huge role. But enough of that. Who were some of the thespians who brought Ricochet to life?
Well, we've already mentioned one, Denzel Washington. Obviously, he's been in a million things. He's got The Equalizer 3, which is either already out or coming out very, very shortly. Steve is going to masturbate to that movie, from what I understand is the plan.
No, absolutely not.
Oh, okay. Or maybe Jonathan Lithgow will frame you for masturbating to the movie.
It's me, Steve. You put me in prison, and I'm going to frame you for masturbating to The Equalizer. All right.
So, speaking of John Lithgow, he plays the bad guy, whose character's name is Earl Talbot Blake, but he's just pretty much referred to as Blake throughout the movie. And all I could think about is every time we said Blake is Hulk Hogan's character in Santa with Muscles, because his name is Blake. It's like Blake Thorne or something like that. But they always call him just Blake, and I don't know. Wow. That's all I could think of. But anyways, John Lithgow, I think most people actually will know him more from Third Rock from the Sun.
Yeah, we should definitely talk about John Lithgow for a minute, because prior to Third Rock from the Sun, he was like one of the main actors to go to if you want like a really bad guy, like just a sinister,
which is so strange.
I mean, I saw him as that stuff before Third Rock from the Sun, so I thought it was strange when he started doing comedy, but it just shows his range.
Well, yeah, no, obviously he's got I don't know if this is maybe the best.
Oh no, it is
showing of his range.
Oh no,
but
it's awesome.
I mean, I had never seen him as a bad guy before, so it was definitely interesting. He definitely gives it his all.
Always does.
He has some questionable material at times in this film, and he really does his best, as does Denzel. They both do their best. These guys make the material better than it really is.
Are you questioning Steve E DeSousa and his
Yes, I am.
What? Well, all right.
Yes,
we'll have to see. But I think the last great bad guy that John Lithgow played, and there may have been others, but
Lord Farquaad.
Well, I mean,
from Shrek.
He was good, but I was gonna say, did you see him season 3 of Dexter?
I've never watched that.
What?
Well, that's not true. I watched like an episode, and I was like, I don't like this.
All right. Well, I think that's enough of John Lithgow for now.
Okay.
Get his name out of your mouth.
All right. We've got Ice-T, who plays, what was his character's name? And not that it really matters, but Odessa. He plays like he's a friend of Denzel Washington's character from back in the day, but also runs a giant crack operation out of a warehouse that he willingly lets be blown up at the end. Anyway,
save it for later.
All right. So he's been in 516 episodes of Law and Order.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
That sounds like steady work. I'd like that someday.
Yeah. I mean, obviously he had his rap career, his metal career. Actually, just this year, Megadeth put out an album, and he's on one of the tracks doing some vocals.
I love Body Count. You ever listen to Body Count?
Yeah. But yeah, and it's actually a pretty good Megadeth album, which most Megadeth albums are fine. Just don't pay attention to the lyrics because they are stupid. Hello, me. Meet the real me. We should have an episode Megadeth lyrics, actually.
I mean, I'd have to do a little studying, but sure.
I can just send you the songs to read the lyrics to or listen to,
And
and
we'll
then
read the lyrics online, or I mean, during the podcast. Is that what you're saying? And make fun of them?
It'll be Do you remember when we found that ICP knockoff Twisted?
Oh yeah.
And how much fun we had just reading his lyrics.
Yes, I do.
It would be like that. It would be a good time.
I'm sold. Sounds great.
Actually, we should probably do a Twisted episode now that I think about it. Although there's so much cursing and racism.
We'll figure it out.
Anyways, up next we've got Kevin Pollak, who plays Larry Doyle. He's Denzel's partner and best friend. Kevin Pollak I like a lot, and the first time I really liked him was in a Schwarzenegger movie called End of Days.
Oh yeah, he was. Man, I completely forgot he was in that. But
I love that movie.
Yeah, that's a fun one. That was before like the Schwarzenegger brand got completely tarnished. But
I don't know. That's 1999. I mean,
well, I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, I guess
the movies after that were not very good. Like that was like one at least that I consider to be pretty good.
Yeah, I do too. And Schwarzenegger's performance, from what I recall, was pretty good too.
Yeah, he was.
I don't know. This might be a hot take, but I feel like he's an underrated actor.
Well, he was definitely trying during his later years. As you know, it's like when the Undertaker started having like real matches in his later years. But no, like I was recently rewatching Commando. Oh man, he's so like hilariously bad. He just looks confused half the time. Like doesn't emote. It's great. That Commando's so good. But anyway.
Well, Kevin Pollak, he's been in a bunch of things. The Usual Suspects, another great movie. I guess most recently he was in Billions. But he's still pretty active in the acting world. Lots of TV shows. He's in 32 episodes of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Moistel. I don't know how it's pronounced.
I thought it was Maisel, but what do I know?
Sure, that makes more sense the way it's spelled. Then we've got Jesse Ventura. He plays the character of. He's barely in the movie, but
I love that
it's a fun appearance.
Him. Yeah.
It's like Chawalski, I think was his name, his character's name, something like that. Anyways, Jesse Ventura, actor, governor, all-around crazy person, former wrestler.
Conspiracy fact person, not theorist.
Yeah.
Fact.
Yeah. Then we've got. I'm not going to go through. This is a big cast,
no,
so I'm just going to kind of name.
Yeah, just the highlights.
Yeah, I'm just going to name two more that I think are pretty notable. We have John Amos, famous for creating Amos cookies, I believe.
I knew it.
Famous Amos.
I knew it.
I actually really like John Amos a lot. He's been in a bunch of stuff, comedies, drama stuff. He's like a very, very solid actor. Never cast as the leading man, but when you see his face, you recognize him. He's got that Bruce Greenwood thing going.
Oh,
you know?
We'll cast him as your dad in the movie of your life.
Yeah, that'd be great. He plays a great father.
Yeah. Right.
Then
wait,
the other person I wanted to
aren't you the preacher's son also? No.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, my dad was a minister.
Wow, just like Denzel.
But my dad would moonlight as a minister. He wouldn't do that as his real job because he wanted to make money, I guess.
I see.
Not that you can't make money as a minister, because obviously you can, but he actually earnestly believed the lies he was brainwashing people with.
Wow. All right.
Anyways, religion's terrible.
Yeah.
All right. So then we've got the last person I want to go over is John Cothran. His character is Councilman Ferris. He's kind of this character that's trying to get Denzel Washington's character to basically go into politics. He's kind of like trying to move him in that direction. I, however, know this man from Star Trek. He's been in an episode of Star Trek Enterprise. He was in an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He was in an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. He technically plays the same character in both of those, the same Klingon character. However, in Deep Space Nine, he plays the Mirror Universe version of that character. Little fun fact. He was also in 2 Star Trek games, Star Trek Klingon and Star Trek Borg. And we should probably cover Star Trek Borg one day. Star Trek Klingon's pretty good too. But basically they're FMV games, but they're like FMV PC games from the mid '90s done right. Like they're very entertaining. In the Borg one, John Delancey is Q in it, and he's in it a lot and very hammy. But anyways, John Cothran, he's also been in a bunch of stuff. He's got 118 credits to his name. He's kind of another one of those guys that like you see his face, you recognize him, but you don't know what he's from. Well, I know what he's from because he's in Star Trek.
Right, of course.
And as far as I'm concerned, that kind of is the cast, Steve. I don't know if there's anybody else that you felt was important to highlight.
Nope, but that is the end of our Star Trek connections, correct?
Yes.
All right, here it comes.
Ah! Oh no! We've just entered another Star Trek connection! Ah!
Alrighty. So basically, the movie starts out with Denzel Washington playing a round of basketball with partner Kevin Pollak against the aforementioned Ice-T, aka Odessa. And just right off the bat, I really liked how like pointlessly complicated the basketball game was shot. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Like the camera's like following the ball.
Yep.
And which would be okay, except that some of the guys on the court are doing all these fancy in between leg dribbles, and the camera's just like shaking. Yeah.
Yep.
This is a great movie to watch if you want to be filled with nausea in the first few minutes.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Well, watch it at 1.3 speed and get back to
So basically, so at this point, I would say I still thought this was going to be like a a straight up crime drama, and basically young Denzel, he notices that Odessa's car was stolen, and he's like, yeah, I don't think we're going to play basketball anymore. And then he goes and hits on a local girl who was just watching the game. And there's a lot of fun sort of a dialogue between the two. He was telling her that he wants to be president, but he needs a first lady. And just a really fun dialogue. Any comments on the opening scene there?
No, there's some no, but here's some commentary. Like throughout this basketball game, like Ice-T and Denzel are like kind of quipping at each other. And basically like the team that Denzel is on, they're from the street, and they're tough guys, and they're like clearly like fouling the other team repeatedly on purpose. Like at one point, doesn't Ice-T like knee Denzel in the stomach?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And the thing is, like, the dialogue, as soon as like they started talking to each other, I was like, oh, a white guy wrote this movie.
Wow, no doubt about it. But I don't know, like it didn't really stand out to me as badly as say like Mantis.
Or Shadowhawk.
Yeah, or Shadowhawk. Yeah.
But I was like, ooh, I think a white guy wrote this because it sounded like a guy from like an older white guy from the 90s trying to write like quote unquote like urban slang for like a black character that's supposed to be from the streets.
Well, there was a lot of that going on in the 90s apparently.
Yeah, and then as the movie, in later parts of the movie, it becomes very obvious. In fact, towards the end, I said, okay, a white guy definitely wrote this. And that's when I checked the writers, and I was like, yep. And that's when I saw Derek's name, and I was like, wait a minute, a white guy from Star Trek.
Right.
But I mean, it's fine. Denzel's dunks.
Of course, he's the hero. He must.
We get an upskirt shot of from his shirt and see his abs, and while he's hanging down from the rim. And yeah, like you said, he flirts heavily with Alice.
Fun fact, Denzel worked out 3 hours a day, apparently, in order to be in good enough shape for his many shirtless scenes in this movie.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it said. Yeah.
He don't get me wrong. He looks, he's in great shape, but you don't need to work out 3 hours a day. Like he wasn't like in that.
Well, don't they say that all the time for like every role that requires like a physical appearance now, especially for superhero movies? They're like,
well, but those kind of make sense because those guys are like usually super bulking up. Like he's just like really lean in this movie, and he's got a little bit of muscle, but you know what? It could have been that he only had a certain amount of time to get into the shape.
Right, exactly. So now we are at like a local carnival, and basically he and Larry, Kevin Pollak's character, they're walking through talking about Star Trek. I think this is the scene where they talk about Star Trek.
Oh, wait a minute. This lady is in Star Trek.
Which lady?
The love interest.
Oh, his wife, his future
Alice.
wife.
Yeah. Yeah. She's in an episode of TNG. I think she's like has like a line or something.
Oh, and you skipped over her.
Yep.
How dare you?
Yep. She played a ballerina. In Where No One Has Gone Before, season 1 episode. Anyways, but then weirdly enough, Kevin Pollak starts talking about Star Trek, the original series. I guess he's a big fan of it.
He does a pretty awesome Shatner impression, don't you think?
He does the typical Shatner impression. Right. But if you actually watch Star Trek, there's only like a handful of scenes where he talks.
You were triggered.
Like
I see. You were triggered. It's okay.
No. It's fine. Hey, but when I do a Kirk, I do the same type of impression.
Right.
Like, here is my Captain Kirk. But he really doesn't talk like that.
No, it's true. But that's like one of those 90s jokes or impressions that like everyone had back then. And you're right. It is always the same. And you're right. He very seldomly talks that way. But so they're walking through, like it's like a great sort of tracking shot. You get the full scope of the fair. I guess this movie is brought to you by Pepsi because they go over and buy a Pepsi and it's like fully labeled and everything. Meanwhile, there's some shady dudes having a dealing in like a warehouse nearby. It looks like, I don't know, Yakuza meeting up with was it like Mexican guys, possibly, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, some kind of Hispanic guys.
Right.
I think when they were speaking Spanish, it sounded to me like it was with a Mexican accent.
Right. Not that it matters. They're just bad guys. You don't even know their race. But so pulling up to the side in a Cadillac is...
Well, it kind of does matter, Steve, because when Jonathan Lithgow pulls up, like you're about to talk about, and he basically blows them away. But later we find out John Lithgow's character is like a Nazi Aryan racist.
Not only that, no, he's worse than them. Like this whole movie is showing us how he's worse than like everyone, like as we're gonna see. But yeah, he basically shows up. He's got his sidekick. Shoot, I forgot his name.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. And I have to say,
Kim. Kim. It's a guy, but named Kim, played by Josh Evans. I guess I should have covered it.
If I have one complaint about this movie, it's that guy's part is kind of useless.
In it?
Yeah, he's not only is he annoying, but it's also kind of useless because his character doesn't do anything. It's almost as if like somebody's friend or like son, family member like needed a role, so they just threw him in there.
And he's not very good.
No, he's not. And basically he's just there to be threatened by Blake, aka John Lithgow. And I don't. Maybe he's there so we can hear Lithgow's plans or something instead of just I don't. It's just someone for him to talk to.
I think he's there so that Jonathan Lithgow isn't monologuing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
To himself.
Yes, exactly.
Plans.
So John Lithgow, aka Earl, he tells Kim to wait in the car because he's like too loud and too inexperienced, whatever. He walks in on this deal, this drug deal or money deal, whatever it is, and proceeds to blow everyone away with a shotgun with ease. Like, what were your thoughts about this scene at this point, about the movie in general?
Oh man, it's pretty over the top because when he like shoots a guy with the shotgun, their chests explode, basically.
Beautiful, glorious squibs, like everywhere.
Yeah, they explode, and the guys, fly back, like 10 feet. So it's one of those kind of things. The only thing missing was dust, powder, blood dust. You know how like movies do that? Like Equilibrium is notorious for it.
I think this is before they started doing that.
Man, we should cover Equilibrium.
Yeah, it's a good movie. We can whoops, spoiler alert, but yeah, we should do that. But so when this shootout happened, I mean, I was definitely on board for this movie because I was like, yes, this is the kind of over the top stuff that I definitely enjoy. And then he pointlessly, I mean, I shouldn't say pointlessly. You get a slow-mo jump through the window. Earl, he jumps through the window, and so in slow motion, it's just 90s excess filmmaking, basically.
Yeah, his fall is broken by like some kind of awning thing with balloons on it. I don't know. It didn't really seem like it would break anyone's fall.
No.
But anyways, he makes it down to the ground, and at this point, like Denzel heard the shots. He's like the only person that heard the shots somehow.
Of course.
At this carnival. But yeah, and Denzel runs over, and his partner also went to go. He told his partner Kevin Pollak to like go around the back of the building or something, and Kevin Pollak, rather than so he goes up to the driver, the annoying goon sidekick of Lithgow, and he's like, what was the line that he said? Like, oh, you'll look real good in a cell or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of lines like that in this movie.
And Kevin Pollak delivered it like he had just dropped the most clever quip of all time.
That's how
he was way too proud about it.
That's how he delivers everything, though. I feel like
that's
the
true,
Kevin Pollak way. So Denzel already has him in his sights, and then of course in classic sort of 90s action movie fashion, a girl just wanders. I guess she comes out of the porta potty or something, and so
yeah, she just took a big dump in the porta potty.
And Earl immediately grabs her and puts the shotgun to her head, and then he's telling Denzel to back off, and this is when, man, he has like the best or worst bad guy dialogue in this movie, and this is one of the lines here. He goes, "Back off, or she's gonna need a paper bag over her head when her boyfriend fucks what's left of her."
Yeah, it's just like, what?
Oh, man. So then, in order to combat this maniac with a shotgun, in order to establish trust, Denzel then takes off all of his clothes, strips down all the way to his boxers, and then, do you know the line that he says after that? Denzel?
Yeah, he says, because Denzel's trying to show him that. So Jonathan Lithgow, we should set the scene, wants Denzel to drop his gun.
Yes.
Which
it's your classic
makes sense.
Standoff.
What does Denzel do? Drop his clothes. Yeah. And Denzel's whole reasoning, while Denzel's still pointing the gun at him, he says, you're going to see that I've got nothing on me. I don't have like a secret gun, a secret knife somewhere, no wire, no flak jacket. With the whole idea being that Denzel tells him, you'll on 3, I'll put the gun down, but you let her go and you take me as your hostage. Is like the premise. But what happens, Steve, as Denzel strips down to the whitest pair of boxers I've ever seen in my life?
Yeah. Well, first Denzel, he says, "See, I don't have anything.
Oh, that's right.
The only weapon I've got now is useless unless you're a pretty girl." Because of course, when you're confronting a dangerous felon, you want to make jokes about your private parts.
Yeah.
So then
you want to let everyone at the carnival know, hey, I got a penis, everyone.
Yeah, right. Well, you got to let everyone know that Denzel is the man in this world.
Yes. He is virile.
Yeah. So he pulls out a Derringer that was hidden in his boxers. They actually explain this after this scene. And he shoots Blake in the kneecap.
But he shoots him behind the back.
Yeah.
And the way he does it, is for those that haven't seen it, imagine the motion if you're to have a baseball and you're throwing it behind your back to catch it with your other hand. It's like that kind of motion. that how he shoots him, which is it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, it was kind of neat. I had already seen it in the trailer, so I kind of wish I wouldn't have. So I knew it was coming, but the trailer makes it seem like there's like the bad guy is making him strip, but it's just Denzel's an exhibitionist, I
right?
guess.
Yeah, he wants everyone to see how much he worked out for the role.
Yeah, I guess so.
So all right, the best part about all this is that some guy with a camcorder films it all because this is the '90s and not everybody had phones with cameras in them, and so this, of course, gets to go onto the news. And basically, the DA, like, she like gets her eye on Denzel, and this is also back in the days of, let's show how I don't even know what I guess they want to show how powerful the DA is, and she just walks right into the men's locker room where Denzel happens to be like naked at the time, and then he has to like hide behind a locker room door and pretend that.
Yeah, it's a pretty tropey scene where like, the woman walks into the men's locker room.
I'm sure
you've seen it a million times where a woman walks into like a sports team locker room during a meeting and she's like, "Oh, don't cover up for me, boys." It's that kind of
right,
scene.
exactly. Like, I mean, again, I'm sure Steve E DeSousa probably invented that trope. Maybe not. Who knows? But yeah, basically, she's like, "I'm gonna keep my eye on you. Like you and your partner are being promoted to
you and your penis." Oh, right.
Yeah. See that now that would have been funny if she was doing that kind of shtick. It's like, I'm really hard up for some good cops in this town, and I think you two are gonna do the job. Like, I mean, but I'm kind of surprised that DeSouza didn't go that route. But this is a serious Hollywood production, Yahel. There's no time for double entendres. I mean, unless it's him, talking about his dick. But anyway.
Yes, of course.
So let's see. Blake is basically watching the news. He sees that Denzel is on there giving a speech, and then I guess he decides at that moment that he's going to get his revenge. And he asks the the prison like book guy if he can have two really big books, like a Bible and the other one was War and Peace. And I guess he was gonna
heavy books. He says he needs like a heavy book.
Right. And you think he's asking for something that's like heavy, like on like intellect or maybe hard to read or something, but he literally wants two heavy books. And I guess he uses them to somehow fix his leg. Like it
made no sense because like Denzel had shot him like just below the kneecap.
Right.
And it's at this point we see that his the wound has been stitched up. But then he takes these two books, he puts them around his ankle, around his foot, and wraps it up in the tape that was covering his wound. So now the books are like attached to his foot, and then he somehow uses this to set his leg, I guess.
Yeah, like it could be
it made no sense.
Right. No, I mean the setting doesn't really make much sense. Like if he maybe was gonna
the way books are used make no sense in this movie, as we'll see in a scene later.
Make sense, it's about to make a whole lot less sense. And then by the third act, logic.
Steve E DeSousa has no idea what books are actually used for. He doesn't know that they can be read.
But okay, so yeah, he does. Basically, the whole point of the scene is that you see that Earl is out for revenge and he's getting crazy. So then he's sent to prison with his cellmate, Jesse Ventura, and
well, Jesse Ventura's already in the cell.
Right.
Lithgow's going to become his cellmate.
Right. So he enters the cell, and I can't exactly. What did Jesse Ventura say to him to make him angry?
Oh, he said, "Hello, my name is Chewalski. It's a pleasure to see you, to meet you."
That's not how it went.
No, I'm pretty sure that's the exact. No, I don't remember what he said. He said something smart, he starts to say something smart. That's the thing. I don't think Jesse even finishes the sentence. He just starts a sentence, and Lithgow immediately beats the shit out of him somehow.
No, he says he does say something because Lithgow says like, "Why don't you go fuck yourself?" And then he basically beats his ass and smashes his head on the rim of the toilet.
Which makes no sense because Lithgow is a pretty lanky guy.
Right. Like I said, they're trying in every possible scene just to show you that he's the worst, the most dangerous, like, villain in all of this corner of the DeSousa verse.
Have you ever seen a movie where Denzel Washington, at least from this era, obviously he's older now, so he's got a little bit of weight on him, but have you ever seen a movie from this era where Denzel looks out of shape?
No.
Right, exactly. What I propose, Steve, is that they asked the wrong actor to spend 3 hours in the gym.
Right. No, that's a good point. I mean, I'll say that for John Lithgow, he probably got in the best shape that he can. I mean, this is probably the best shape I've ever seen him. I mean, he
looks, this is how he looked in Third Rock from the Sun.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
What are you talking about? Like, he did not work out or anything. But yeah, anyway, and Jesse Ventura, he's a big dude, muscular guy, tall guy. Well, Lithgow's kind of tall too.
Right.
But anyways, yeah, he beats the shit out of him, and then Lithgow starts putting his own books and things like on the shelves, and he has like a newspaper clipping with Denzel Washington's face on it, from the arrest, and he puts it on the wall. So we see this establishes that he's obsessed with Denzel, and I guess with those abs, you can understand why he's obsessed with him.
Exactly. All right. So basically. During this time, Nick has become the assistant district attorney. Nick, of course, is Denzel Washington, in case you haven't figured that out yet. And meanwhile, because of his infraction against the Aryan Brotherhood by cracking Jesse Ventura's skull on the rim of the toilet, he then has to fight Jesse Ventura in gladiatorial combat. They are duct taping.
Well, I think like samurai combat is what they call it.
Yeah, all right, even crazier.
Because they make swords, like samurai swords.
Out of
Remember,
barbells.
they like fashion them from pipes or something. I can't remember what they use.
It's the barbells from they like cut them in half and somehow made them into a giant shiv somehow. It's so ridiculous. But yeah, so they duct tape phone books and newspapers to them. And so, yes.
And they duct tape them in like the form of like the shape of like samurai, gear.
Right. Yeah.
So imagine if you were going to, for Halloween, you're going to go as a samurai, but you're poor and all you can afford is, all you have are 30
paper
phone
products
books to make your samurai outfit out of. That's what they look like. And so I guess it's supposed to be like their armor.
Yeah.
Why do they have armor?
Yeah. And well, this is so ridiculous. Like, all right, so I have my theories on why this scene even exists. Like, okay, Steven DeSousa either put it in there because he thought maybe somehow sword fighting would attract Russel Mulchahey, who did Highlander, or Russel Mulchahey was like, hey, I want to do an homage to Highlander, and that's why, because the sound effects even sound like Highlander when their swords like clash with one another. It's just the most ridiculous, over the top scene. And the best part is that there's still a reason for it to be there, because after, all right, spoiler alert, John Lithgow basically defeats Jesse Ventura, and you think maybe he's gonna wait a minute. But then on Jesse Ventura's armor, he sees like a newspaper clipping of Denzel Washington saying that
it's the same one from earlier, isn't it?
I don't think it's the same one.
I think so, because it ends up on whatever. There's a newspaper clipping about Denzel on him.
And it makes him so mad that he stabs Jesse Ventura with his barbell/sword or whatever. And,
yeah, and then. Steve, do you remember like before the fight started, like the spectators are there and one of them says, yeah, we're going to see who the best Aryan is.
Right. And I mean, doesn't John Lithgow have red hair in this? Does that even count as Aryan? Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
yeah, it was reddish at times.
I mean, you've been to a couple of Aryan meetings. I mean, what?
No, I have not. I don't think it would go well for me if I was in one of those.
Well, why not? We could talk about it later. So yeah. I mean, that's the most bizarre scene. I mean, I can only imagine how long and expensive it was to like shoot that, just so he can find that newspaper clipping at the end. And I wonder if Steve E DeSousa put it in just so he could be like call up Russel Mulchahey and goes, look, you like sword fighting? There's a sword fighting scene. So what do you say? All right, anyway.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, enough about that scene. Oh, basically, he also, Earl tells the Aryan leader that, he wants to break out. Prison life is not for him. So moving on, Matt Stiles is flying high as assistant district attorney, and then he's being asked to get into politics because everyone loves him. Let's see. Denzel, he goes to Ice-T's place and gives a nice dressing down to Ice-T and his crew. What did you think about him, like, basically laying down like a after school special, like in the middle of this like crack gang?
Yeah, it's really weird. He just shows up to like I didn't understand. He starts talking about like how they're not selling drugs in some other part of town.
See, it can be confusing at first because like I didn't really get it either. This is like my second time in just like a couple of weeks watching this movie. Like he's telling them not to sell drugs around that tower area, that they get to at the end of the movie, because he's raising money to build a boys and girls club in that area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. See?
Yeah, I got confused because then he also gives them like a dressing down about where they are selling drugs and how they're selling them to each other and just like making things worse for themselves and like their people. But anyways, everyone starts pointing a gun at Denzel, but Denzel, he's a crafty veteran. He brought a grenade. He pulls out the grenade, pulls out the pin, and says, "Oh, who here wants to die? Huh? Oh, I guess none of you want to actually die." As they start putting down their guns, and so Denzel's allowed to leave after. Or no, doesn't he make like some kind of deal with them, or they agree to not to his terms? Basically,
they do.
Is what happens.
Yeah.
And then Denzel walks out of the building, and he's talking to Kevin Pollak. And at this point, I don't know if we mentioned, but they've both been promoted. They had been promoted to detective, but then Denzel at this point is already a district attorney.
You know that he is because he has a mustache. That's how you know he's a district attorney.
Yes.
But
I want to mention it now because I don't want to forget to. But later in the climax, when he's finally kind of facing off with Lithgow, Denzel and Lithgow are facing off. Denzel has this funny line where he tells him, basically he's trying to say, "Oh, I have everything you wanted. I have a family, a home, a foreign car, a laser disc."
yes, that was
and
awesome.
That just cracked me up. The height of luxury. He might as well have said, "I've got a Philips CDI."
Yeah, I've even got a Sega CD with the 32X, which I don't believe was out at that point, but.
He's got the JVC XI version of the Sega CD player.
You'll never be as good as me because I've got that stuff and you don't.
But so anyways, Denzel walks out of the building, talks to Kevin Pollak, and he's got the grenade in his hand, and he pops the top on the grenade. It's a lighter, Steve.
Man, that's such like 90s cheese. Ah, man.
And then he lights a cigarette.
See that?
Smokes it.
It's pretty hilarious. So, all right, now we're back with Blake in prison, and the guard says, "The parole board's ready for you, Blake. I hope you remember to floss." And then, do you remember his reply, or should I?
Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, I remembered. I flossed all right with your wife's fucking pubic hair."
Oh man, see, like that's so quotable. I mean, you can use that every day in almost every conversation.
Yeah. Job interview. Whatever.
You want to talk about job interview? We're about to get to that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Steve. I don't want to interrupt.
So we get to the parole meeting, and basically the lead parole guy is like, "So what's the first thing you're gonna do if you get out of if we let you out of prison like today?" And
Steve, hold on. You skipped an important part.
Okay.
As he's walking, John Lithgow is walking to the parole hearing. He walks down a hallway where there's some prisoners that are working
It's
on
not just any
fixing.
prisoners, it's the Aryan Brotherhood.
Right, the Aryan Brotherhood from earlier that saw him, kill Jesse Ventura. And one of them is like doing something to a light or something, and then the other one has I don't know what kind of saw it is, but it's like an electric saw.
Yeah.
And it's not like tied down to anything. He's just like sawing like thick fucking 2x4s. And I knew, I'm like, oh man, someone's getting killed with that saw for sure.
Yes. Oh man, it's so ridiculous. So yeah, as Yahel said, he walked past those guys. Now he's in the parole hearing, and the lead guy's like, "What's the first thing you're gonna do when you leave today?" He's like, "Well, first I think I'd go to your house." And the guy's like, "Oh, to thank me, right?" He's like, "No, I think I'm gonna fuck your wife and daughter, maybe the dog." And then he shoots the guy with some like hidden pen gun that I guess was a scene that they omitted that showed him making I don't know, this weird sort of.
It's weird because it looks like he's like using a blow dart.
Yeah, blow dart. You took
visually. But it comes out of the little cylinder thing, which is like not much bigger than a straw, but it comes out like a bullet, and it goes through the guy's head like a bullet.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense.
And then, if that weren't enough, the aforementioned Aryan Brotherhood with the power tools, they basically massacre the other cops that are like nearby. One of them takes like a saw to the gut, basically. So it's definitely.
It was like a horror movie scene. Like one guy gets drilled in the neck, like with a power drill.
Yeah. It was pretty awesome, if I dare say so. But then Earl, he gets a gun and he demands the clothes from the rest of the parole board. And the next scene is I guess I forgot to mention, he's got like a sort of sleazy public defender who was in the parole hearing with him. And now that guy is taking him and the Aryan Brotherhood basically out of the prison. They're all wearing the clothes of the parole board. It's the most obvious like breakout in like cinema history. But luckily enough, they get to the end, and the book guy, and I love the callback here. Like, this is the most well written like sleazy piece of trash like ever. Like, it's the book guy from back when Earl asked for the 2 heavy books, and the guy's like, "Hey, young man." And so Earl basically just open fires, like shoots the book guy, shoots the cops. They then head to the bookmobile. And I mean, basically it's just pandemonium, like squibs everywhere. Am I missing anything that's significant that happens?
No, he just like indiscriminately kills people. Basically everybody ends up dying, getting shot by him or his friends, except for the main Aryan guy,
Kim,
and his little goon buddy Kim.
And and then they basically they make their way into the bookmobile. It's speeding away, and he tells his lawyer that you're fired and shoots him right in the face, because that's what villains do.
Yeah.
and
not only that, but the lawyer is like trying to get on the truck. Why is the lawyer trying to get in the truck?
I don't think he had a choice. I think they were holding on to his arm, if I'm not mistaken.
But he's like grabbing him to like, is that what it was? I don't know. It was weird. But either way, like Lithgow's holding his arm. The truck is moving, so the lawyer's having to run along with the truck. And the great thing, like you said, he shoots him, but as he's falling after he gets shot, Lithgow steals his watch off him.
Right.
Which I thought was pretty funny.
So bad. Like, even when he's doing something super bad, he still has time to do the little bad things.
Right.
So next we get a pretty awesomely shot scene. I guess it's supposed to take place like at dusk. They park the bookmobile next to, I guess it's I don't know, the Pacific Coast Highway or something in California. And it's you can really only see people's silhouettes. And really the most significant thing here is like Blake ends up killing the head Aryan guy. Like the guy starts asking for his like passports or something, like how they're gonna get out of the country, and Blake just kills him. And that's the one thing that makes me believe that I don't think Blake is an Aryan or a racist. He's just out for himself, like no matter what. He doesn't care about anyone else, and he'll use anyone to get
maybe you're right.
get the job done. Not that it matters. He's a horrible human being, but I don't think he's an Aryan guy. But
he might be. Blake's like, I might be a murderer, but I'm no racist.
Yeah, exactly. So now there's like I think a courtroom scene. Basically, Nick gets to do like a big, closing argument or whatever. And then he and Kevin Pollak or Larry start walking out. A bum asks Blake for money, and he gives it to him. And after they walk out of frame, the bum pulls off his hat, and it's Blake disguised as a bum. Ooh.
Like, why is he even doing that?
Because you wouldn't expect it, Yahel. That's why. And then we get a pretty tense scene. At least I thought it was when I first watched it. Where so Nick and wife are out for a big fundraiser for the aforementioned, kids' home at the tower area or whatever. And meanwhile, the power gets cut at Blake's house, and the babysitter calls him up to, I guess, tell them that the girls are scared. And they're like, well, call the power company. And she's like, I did. And then the doorbell rings. And who's at the door? That motherfucker. It's Earl in disguise again. Did you know he was going to be such a master of disguise here? He's almost like the Pretender over here.
Yeah. He's got like an outfit for everything. Yeah. Also, what's to stop the power company from showing up? Yeah. I mean, is the assumption that he killed the actual guy that showed up from the power company? Because that would have made more sense to show that. But this movie is already like too long, in my opinion, so I'm kind of glad they didn't.
So basically, he goes in there, he drugs like their girls or the babysitters, Coco. They all fall asleep, and basically
it's weird. Like, why are they having like a sit down Coco and doing like some weird birthday celebration thing? It's somebody's birthday. I can't remember. I don't know who.
It was Blake's birthday.
Oh, that's what it was. So it's like Blake's birthday. So they like have candles. Like, just think about it. He would have had to tell them, it's my birthday today. Oh, well, let's, put some candles in a Twinkie for you and stranger before you fix the power, which he says is only going to take 5 minutes to fix anyway.
I mean, I can tell that they just wanted to have like a creepy moment between Earl and like the girls. And even though it doesn't necessarily make sense, and this is what they came up with. You're right. It's completely outlandish and doesn't make sense. But I would say that is the MO of this movie. Over the top outlandishness.
I just feel like the scene wasn't over the top enough for me to distract from how unrealistic the setup for it is.
I could see that. They probably could have just edited this scene out entirely, and then just have like the the video show up later, and then Blake just explain over the phone, yes, that's right, I was in your house, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, if they just wanted to show that he drugged them, he could have just, when they're not looking, drugged the Coco, which is ultimately what ends up happening anyway.
Right, exactly.
Whatever.
Yeah, so basically, after Nick's, so I guess Earl is the one who sends the cash to send the telethon like over the amount that they needed.
Why?
I don't know.
Well, actually, I do know why, because the idea he does that so that the councilman will then go and deposit the cash.
Right, and question where the money came from. Yeah.
But how would he know that the councilman is gonna be the one to go deposit the cash, and which bank he's gonna go to for the drop off? There's a lot of plot conveniences going on.
100%, 100%. I mean, I just assume anyone. I mean, that's the that's the most glaring like sort of problem is who's depositing that amount of money in the middle of the night by themselves. Like you're
Well,
just
as the councilman said, because Kevin Pollak offered to like drive him, he is a cop, and he goes, huh, this is my side of town. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Like, what?
yeah.
You live in a dangerous side of town, dude.
That's basically
Like,
his way of saying, "Leave me alone, white guy." No, I don't.
yeah, basically.
So yeah, basically this gets. I believe his name was Ferris. This gets him killed, and then there's a meetup between. Finally, Earl and Nick meet up, and it's why do I have the? Oh yeah, it's he. Earl goes. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Nick says, "Jesus Christ," and then Earl goes, "Almost." See?
Yeah. Stupid.
Oh, come on, that's classic. And then, all right, but then that's followed up by even more weird dialogue. Kim goes, all right, so they drugged Nick or knocked him out somehow. They're basically kidnapping him, and after they knock what's his name out. In fact, I believe it's Earl who basically like hits him with the butt of the gun, and Kim shows up and he goes, "I bet he shit his pants. I can't wait to look." Like,
Just
like they really want you to know that he's a messed up individual.
yeah.
So all right, so now they've kidnapped Nick. There was some earlier stuff that showed that had Ferris, like he was basically hanging from like a wire, wearing like this leather bustier, trying to.
Well, he was like hung. It looked like he had hung himself.
Yeah.
Is what
They were trying to
make
make
it look like. And they dressed him up like in lingerie and like try to make it look he was in drag, basically.
Yeah.
And that's how they referred to it later.
Yeah. Basically trying to make it look like he's a sexual deviant.
Yeah, and then like, well, more than that, they try to make it look like he's like into little kids.
Yeah.
And like molested them or something because they planted in his briefcase like basically like child porn.
Right.
And yeah, it was it's so ridiculous. So the whole thing is Jonathan Lithgow donated $10,000 to the telethon, and somehow he knew the councilman would be the one making the donation or making the deposit at night and what bank he would go to. And his whole plan from the beginning was to capture him to make it look like he is into little boys so that then people would suspect that maybe because he's friends with Denzel and they like went to some kid's charity thing in Florida, that maybe Denzel's character might also be into little boys.
Well, only sexual deviants travel to Florida. Duh.
Yeah, apparently. But it was just like, man, that's a very flimsy plan.
It's a very convoluted plan / plot. So you just have to sort of strap yourself into the roller coaster and kind of hang on to the ride. Like if this is the kind of ride you want to take. So yeah, basically this is, and finally they capture Nick, and basically it's Earl's or Blake's whole plan is to discredit Denzel as like the pillar of community that he's become. And it starts with him injecting him with, I can't remember exactly
heroin.
what drugs are in a speedball. I think it's actually supposed to be heroin and cocaine.
Well, that's what they find in his blood later, so it would have to be.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just not up on my drug lingo.
It's not the only thing they find in his blood.
Oh, yeah. And it doesn't,
we'll get to that.
It doesn't stop there. I mean, yeah, so basically they're like poking him with needles, and
they have him in like a big empty pool,
yeah,
which becomes important. Yeah. So it's like an Olympic-sized pool, but it's been empty. There's no water in it. They've got him strapped to a chair.
Visually,
but Steve, before they,
what's that?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, visually shooting in that empty pool is like really kind of interesting because it feels just so desolate and empty. It was an interesting choice. Is all.
Yeah, it's a cool setting. Yeah. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Nope.
Especially with what happens later with the pool. But one thing that you forgot to mention is that before he's injected, Lithgow is like basically is forcing Denzel to arm wrestle him.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the arm wrestling.
But did you
scene.
Notice the way they clasped hands when they arm wrestled?
No.
So usually when you arm wrestle somebody, it's thumb to thumb.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They didn't do that. They did it like this, like with their fingers over their fingers.
That's weird.
I was like, what? Nobody on set said, hey, this is not how people arm wrestle. Has literally no one on this production ever arm wrestled or seen someone arm wrestle.
Or watched the movie Over the Top starring Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, so it was, oh my God, so awkward.
And yeah, that's important later. There's a lot of there's a lot of setups and payoffs in this movie.
But yeah, so they drug him up, you know, he's like all weary or whatever. And then the next thing they do is they tie him to like a bed. They have like a prostitute come in.
Now, do you think it makes sense to buy like a smoking hot, like attractive prostitute? Or should they have like maybe went for someone a little, maybe someone that, you know, Nick would not particularly enjoy?
Well, I think the idea is to make it believable. They got like a high class, you know, escort
with gonorrhea,
right? With no, Steve, chlamydia.
Oh, right.
But yeah, so they get this like high end escort to come in, and while he's tied to the bed and drugged up, and she, you know, has sex with him, and they videotape it so that they can blackmail him with it later.
We left out.
We're not blackmailing, but just because they're not really blackmailing him, they're just, you know, they're going to put it out there to make it look like he's like hooking up with prostitutes.
This is the first canceling ever, and here it is, 1991. This is the first canceling.
Yeah, pretty much. But I thought this was like dumb because he's so drugged up that he can't even talk. He can only mumble. There's no way he's getting it up.
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's dumb. But the dumbness doesn't stop there, Yahel, because there was a scene earlier that I forgot to mention where basically Denzel and the congressman who is now deceased, like they were basically having drinks at this restaurant, and the waitress comes in, and there's just sort of like some kind of, they're just basically talking. It sounds a little flirty, but he's not even really flirting. And over on the other side of the wall, after a swooping pan around, you see Earl Talbot Blake recording what's going on with a Walkman, basically. And so he takes the audio from that. He edits it with his Fisher-Price My First Editor or whatever.
Yeah, he must have a 4-track somewhere.
Yeah. And he puts that audio with the video of Denzel having sex with the prostitute, and it's later like delivered to the news and to the DA and stuff like that.
But when they show the video that the DA has with the audio and all that stuff, you can see that Denzel's passed out in it.
Oh, I mean, it's like the worst like setup of like all time. Like anyone, even if you were just like the local, like if you were the guy who got coffee like at the local news, you'd be able to tell that the video is complete like fake. It's so stupid.
Yeah, like this movie doesn't seem to know what it wants to be. Like at times it wants to be taken seriously and played straight, and other times it's ridiculously over the top.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a pretty ridiculous, convoluted plot, and everything else is pretty over the top. It's a who could say? We'll have to ask Steve E DeSousa if he's still alive.
Yeah.
So basically, they send Nick back. He's found on the streets as like a bum. And then the next scene is like him in the at the doctor, and they're like taking his blood test and everything. And at this point, everyone thinks that Earl is dead because, and again, this is a pretty flimsy, but you just have to go with it. So after he killed the Aryan Brotherhood guy, he shot him in the kneecap, and that apparently is enough to convince any coroner that was Blake. Like,
yeah, well, no, it's really weird. They say like something like about his teeth records. Like that's how they verified that it was Blake. But it's like, because they say if it wasn't for his shock, the wound and his teeth records, we wouldn't have known it was him.
Yeah.
But it's like
there was no scene of him.
Oh, I remember because there's a scene later where somebody in the medical office switches.
There you go. Yep. There you
Oh,
go.
okay, that's what that was. Yeah, so somebody way, way earlier. This is before he breaks out of prison. Blake, I guess, fell down on purpose. He got a cut that needed stitches,
Right.
and maybe it was from the samurai fight, or whatever, from their samurai LARPing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and while the doctor was distracted with Blake, Kim, I think, is the one that went in and switched the dental records.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go.
And I guess it was for the only dental records. Okay, you know what? Why would they go through the trouble? Now I'm pissed that they went through the trouble of explaining that very well, mind you, but they don't explain him having the electrician's outfit. They don't explain how he knew that the $10,000 would be deposited by the councilman and all that stuff.
He surveilled them. He's been following them. This is a Machiavellian plot of revenge.
This is what I'm saying, Steve. This movie doesn't know what it wants to be.
I think it knows exactly what it wants to be.
It has an identity crisis.
It wants to be high budget sleaze. 90s excess, basically.
I don't know.
Where Steve E DeSousa was such a big name that I guess the producers just threw money at this. Like, oh, you want to have a samurai fight in there with phone books and barbells and swords? Do it. Go right ahead. Like, they just said yes to everything because that guy, I guess, was just making everybody money back then. But moving on, like, basically, I mean, unless there's anything that I need to, like, talk about specifically, basically, Nick gets out and everything is just, he's just being discredited left and right, no matter what he does. Like, this is what.
Yeah, they take his blood, you know, like at the, I can't remember if it was at the police station because they weren't at a hospital, but they take his blood to, you know, make sure he's okay. And that's when they find that. They call him the next day. Hey, we found cocaine and heroin in your system, and also we found a little bit of the clap.
Yes, of course.
And that's how his wife overhears this, and that's how she finds out that, like, he slept with somebody, and he's like, oh, I couldn't do anything about it. The only thing that was working was my penis somehow.
Yeah, and she makes a remark that is pretty much just that. But
she's like, well, I do know how it's a tool for pretty ladies. I understand.
No, a weapon. A weapon for pretty ladies.
Yes.
One scene that I think is pretty hilarious. All right, so as they're leaving the police, I don't know, the place where he's getting checked out or whatever, he's surrounded by reporters. And he's like, I'm going to prove it to you all. Let's go right now to the pool. And he goes, like, I don't know if they all rode together in like a big van or a bus or something, but you can assume that the pool is somewhere else where they were, but all the exact same reporters and Denzel and I guess Kevin Pollak and whoever else was in the previous scene, they all show up at the pool where he was being held. And what's going on there? Water aerobics.
Yep, the pool has been fully filled.
And that's just the genius of Earl Talbot Blake. He knew he only had a certain amount of time to use the empty pool. And then when he was done, the water aerobics people filled it up and started using for water aerobics. So there's no questions to be asked here. It's an airtight plot you're dealing with here.
Steve, how long do you think it takes to fill an Olympic pool?
I don't know. A couple of hours, a day, 6 hours. 6 hours.
If you used a normal garden hose, which we don't see like, well, we don't see like anything, you know, whatever. It takes 19 days.
What?
Now, maybe they've got something else to fill it with, but it's definitely not going to be overnight.
Yeah, I mean, it's
filled.
It's an indoor pool. You can assume they've got a couple of spigots or, you know.
Okay, now I did find out how long it takes normally, like if you have the proper equipment to fill up an Olympic pool. It's 4 days and 14 hours.
All right.
And yeah, I imagine draining it would take a few days too, a couple days too. And where does that water go? I don't know. Maybe they got a little plug you pull. But anyways, just throwing it out there.
Well, all right then. So let's see here. Yeah, basically there's a lot of sort of scenarios where basically Nick just starts looking crazier and crazier to everyone. There's a scene where he, oh yeah, basically Blake sends him the tape of when he was dressed as the electrician, hanging around in his house. He like holds up an axe to one of his daughters, and this is so stupid. All right, so Denzel freaks out, which I mean, of course, I mean, I guess who wouldn't? Like, but he runs up, sees that his daughter's room is completely empty. There's no blood stains or anything. So what does he do? Instead of like a rational adult, like does he call anyone or anything? No, he grabs his gun and runs to the. I guess it's like an outdoor. It's like almost like a Christmas pageant or something. Some sort of, kid like a concert of some kind. And he sees like a shady looking guy from behind, and he tackles him and points his gun like right up on stage in front of everyone. And of course, it's a clown, and all the kids are freaked out, and they're freaking out. And he looks like a complete psycho, threatening this clown. What did you think of this scene?
Yeah, again, like it didn't make any sense. He doesn't do anything with the tape. And the tape, it's pretty clear from the tape that it's like at night.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense because it's at a completely different time.
So why would he think that he's up there? Does he think it's live? It's a videotape that you just put in.
It's almost as if, I mean, you'd think someone who owns a Laserdisc would know how media works, like would know how a VHS works. You know what I mean?
You would think, but I will say that I know the reason why. It's because like once he goes over to the DA, he gets over to like wherever the clown is at or whatever the kids are at. Well, I was gonna say he's like still like going through withdrawal or something because he's super sweaty, but he did just run like a mile
right
in a bathrobe, so that's why he's sweating.
Right, a pink bathrobe. I love how like all the colors they could have put him in. They really wanted us to think that he was like I guess going crazy. So it would, I guess, maybe pay off at the end.
Yeah. And a congresswoman happens to be there videotaping this whole scenario too.
Right. And then, so the next scene is him at the DA's office, and he's like, "Look, here's the proof right here." And he jams the VHS tape into the VCR, and it's the tape of him having sex with the hooker. Like, how did that happen? Was it like added on after the daughter part?
Well, after he runs out of the house, doesn't Kim show up? Don't we see a scene where like Kim then goes into the house? Oh yeah, you're
right. So you could assume that. All right, so he ran back to the house, picked a different VHS, didn't bother to check it, went to the DA, played it, and it was the sex tape.
Right, because I guess Kim and Blake knew that that's what was going to happen. He was going to take the tape to the straight to the DA. Wasn't going to show it first to his wife to be like, "See, I'm not crazy," which I mean that wouldn't have been great either if she saw it, but you would think like he'd want to show proof of this stuff. So yeah,
of course, obviously, without question.
Yeah, it's like I said, there's a lot of plot conveniences here. Like, wouldn't it have made more sense for Blake to send that tape to the media himself, to just send it to the news?
Yeah, you'd think so, but it's more of an embarrassment if he plays it himself for the DA.
I guess so. And then I guess the DA sent it out to the media, who showed it.
Oh no, I think Blake had already sent it at that point. I don't think the DA did. Blake had several copies, so.
I see.
So anyway, Larry ends up dying. Blake shoots him.
Yeah, Larry gets shot by Blake as they're chasing Kim, and
right,
like like Larry's chasing Kim. Then Blake comes out and he's like, "Oh, Larry, it's me, John Lithgow from Third Rock from the Sun." Shoots him in the chest like 30 times, unloads the clip basically, and Denzel like is running up while this is happening. Then Blake throws the gun at Denzel, and Denzel catches it like a fucking idiot with his hand. And then Blake takes off the gloves he was wearing and goes, "Ah, now it's got your fingerprints all over it."
I wish he would have laughed like that. So yeah, of course it's raining when Larry dies. I'm surprised we didn't get the sort of classic no, but
Well, Larry does have like a line where, as he's dying in Denzel's arms, where he says, "Well, I guess you were right about Blake being alive, because how could he kill me if he was dead?"
right.
And then he died.
That's freaking hilarious. All right. So basically, Nick calls his boy Ice T, and I thought this was pretty because it's shot from Ice T's perspective, and he's like, "What? You want a what?" And he looks over at RC, and he's like, "Oh man, my boy gone crazy." It's like you could
Yeah.
just make up that. That could actually be like a funny meme. Like you could have like anyone on the other end of that phone call saying whatever you want, and just Ice T going, "What? You're crazy."
Yeah.
So it's that classic trope of where a plan is being created, but they don't tell the audience. So you just have to sort of watch it unfold. And then I really like when Nick goes back home and he's like trying to convince Alice and the kids and the final like to get out of the house, to get out of like the city. And he goes, "I'm innocent and perfectly sane. Now get in the car." Like, I'm like, oh, well, if you're saying then yeah, sure, we'll go with you.
Yeah, sure, okay,
And
yeah.
oh wait, he doesn't send them out of the city. They then go to Ice T's place, his crack house, and
It's
then
crack warehouse.
he sends his daughters away with RC, like the Ice T's like local like henchman, basically. And
Yeah, and Ice-T is like, "You take very good care of these ladies,
yeah, and he's like,
or to protect them with your life," he says something.
yeah,
Like suddenly, like these, drug dealers become, the thief with a
noble,
heart of
yeah,
gold.
noble knights, basically.
Yeah.
All because their boy, Nick Styles reached out to them. Now,
Mind you, last time they saw him, they were all ready to shoot him.
yeah, yeah, right. Uh, next, Earl and Kim go to a fetish bar, like for no reason. And again, I think this is when they're still trying. I don't know. They're still trying to tease like what's wrong with Earl. And so now I think we're all supposed to be like, I get it. He's a sexual deviant. Like he and Kim are obviously a couple, blah, blah, blah. But Kim is like, so what do you think of the place? And Earl is like, they're a bunch of like freaks or something. So either he's like in the closet or I mean, I don't know. I guess you're free to like figure out whatever the heck is wrong with Earl for your own, your own devices. So the whole point, what was even the point of this fetish bar?
Basically, it was just so that they could watch on live TV the
Right,
news,
right,
because he wanted to see um, Nick get arrested,
right. That's it. And they,
because he somehow knew that he would be getting arrested right then at that time.
of course,
Because I don't know, like John Lithgow's character is apparently clairvoyant, uh, with the exception of when the climax
right,
hits.
right, right. And I just love like Stephen S. D'Souza or E. D'Souza. He was just like, we need to have an interesting place for them to meet up and watch the news. It's like I could do Bennigan's, Ruby Tuesdays, or the Fetish Bar. And he goes,
Yeah, and they've got like at this fetish bar, like people, women are naked of all sizes.
yep,
Which that actually really surprised me, because this is a movie from what, 1991, and you've got your typical like fit people that are naked in this bar, but then they also had like really really heavy set woman that was also like naked, and with some like leather straps around her, and then you had, of course, because it's 1991, and anytime you want to make something weird, what do you throw in,
a
Steve?
dwarf. I mean, sorry, little
Yep. So
person, little
yeah,
person.
you've got a little person bartender, who is standing on the bar, and that's how he's pouring everyone's drinks.
Yeah.
So yeah, very tropey.
For you, that's just a Tuesday at the castle, right? Am I right? Anyway, so now Nick, he's on top of Ice T's building, and he's basically pretending to be insane. And this does not sit well with one Earl Talbot Blake, because he wants to be the one to ruin Denzel Washington's life, and he doesn't want Denzel to, hurt himself or kill himself, which is basically what this is looking out to be. He throws a flare into Ice-T's beautiful drug lab, and somehow Ice-T and his noble gang of drug dealers, they allow him to blow it up. And man,
I guess they decided to turn over a new leaf.
Yeah, like what are they going to do for work after this? But man, that explosion was amazing. Like this is obvious.
Okay,
what's up?
Yeah, amazing, huge explosion, Steve. Can we talk about how Denzel escapes the huge explosion?
Doesn't he just sort of slide down a? How does he do it?
Oh, I wish it was. It's kind of like that, but worse. So
walks down the fire escape.
This rooftop. No, that would have made more sense. This rooftop has like, I don't know what they're called, but they're like these glass pyramid, like dome thingies at the top of the roof. But the glass is not see-through. It's like frosted glass, so he can't really see through it. But his escape plan is to jump. Actually, he like falls, and they make it seem like it's an accident, like he steps on one of these glass pyramid things and falls through it. But thank God he perfectly chose exactly where to step through, even though he couldn't see, because he falls through like this like chute that is literally the size, exact width of Denzel Washington. Like if he was an inch to the left or right or any other direction, he would not have like fallen through it. Anyways, the chute, I guess, is fireproof. So he goes through that. And I guess at some point, Steve, it must like turn into a slide, because otherwise, from the way it looks like it's 90 degrees, like a right angle, straight down.
Right.
And he goes down like from this is like, I don't know, what would you say, like a 10-story building?
Yeah, at least.
So I don't understand how he survived this. It doesn't make any sense.
He survived because he's the hero. Dwee.
Oh, duh. But yeah, so he wants basically to make Blake think that he's killed himself, that he's going to kill himself to bring him out, because Blake is established. It's established early on. Blake doesn't want to kill Denzel.
Right.
He wants him to like live and suffer.
Right. Yes, that's exactly right. And lucky for one Earl, he's walking away from the explosion, crestfallen that his plan had fallen apart because Denzel had, quote unquote, committed suicide. And luckily, our noble drug dealer, Ice-T, is like, no, wait, it wasn't him. It was one of the other lackeys. He was like, hey, are you Blake? I got a phone call for you from a phone booth, which is always hilarious. And so he comes over and picks it up, and it's Ice-T, and he's like, you need to meet at the tower, motherfucker. And because, of course, everyone knows the tower, and I guess...
He's like, yeah, if you want to see Denzel,
right.
He's at the tower.
Exactly.
Come meet us at the tower.
Right. So that's pretty much what they do. I guess I think it was the drug dealers. They captured Nick, and then they strung him up to this tower. And to describe this tower, it's like, I mean, obviously it's made of.
It's like the electrical towers in Spider-Man 2, the Amazing Spider-Man 2, where he fights Electro, whichever movie that is.
Yeah, exactly. And
they've got Kim, Lithgow's little goon buddy, like up there, like he's kind of crucified, basically. Yeah. He's like tied to the tower. He like, and it's funny, like this is when Kim realizes just now that Lithgow is out of his mind.
Right.
And an idiot, because he's like, why didn't you just kill him? All you did was, he's like, this is basically like the Rorschach scene where he's like, I'm not stuck in this prison with you. You're stuck here with me.
Right.
Because Kim tells him, all you did, you didn't kill his wife. You didn't kill him.
Right.
You didn't mess up his life. All you did was make him mad.
Yeah.
and he's like, you're an idiot, blah, blah, blah. And then Lithgow's like, you know what, bro? I've had enough of you. I'm going to shoot you from 5,000 feet away, shooting upward at an awkward angle. Hits him with every bullet perfectly.
Right.
So he kills him. And then Denzel Washington shows off his ventriloquist skills and starts throwing his voice all around.
Yeah, he
and he's
basically...
like, oh, Blake, but it's coming from all different directions.
He turns to the shadow, like, basically, at the end.
Yeah, he's like, where are you? Where are you, Denzel? Blake just starts calling him Denzel.
Right. It was really weird.
So and then Denzel just pops up and goes, "Oh, I'm right here."
Yeah. Right. And then,
but Denzel's at the top of the tower,
right?
or near the top of this like tower. So he's like, "Oh, come and get me, John Lithgow." And John Lithgow's like, "Sure, I'm an idiot. I'll go up there."
Right. There was no warning about the high ground in this movie. In episode 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So he just goes up there and they start fighting and they quip. And this is where like Denzel tells him, "Oh, I've got everything you wanted, even a laser disc player." I've been playing Dragon's Lair on this thing every night.
And Space Ace.
And Space Ace. And what have you been doing? You've been stuck with the Super Nintendo version. Yeah. That thing is nothing like the real game.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not that they went into that, but
so it was weird, but totally works. So this whole time, the noble gang of drug dealers are talking to each other on cell phones. It was so weird that cell phones made an appearance in the third act of this movie, and they weren't present at all like previously.
A lot of cell phones.
Yeah. So they're talking to each other like in order to play out basically Nick Stiles' plan. You see someone like opening up like a panel to a light thing, and then they're hooking up electrodes to it. And meanwhile, Nick and Earl are at the very top, and they're like fighting each other. There's sort of a callback to the arm wrestling scene where they're at the top of this tower. They're clasping hands incorrectly, and this time John Lithgow presses Nick Stiles' hand onto this like spike that's like sticking up for no reason.
Yeah, but it's not his hand that goes through it. It's like his bicep or forearm. It was hard. It's like in the shot, it's his forearm in the close-up shot, but then when they pan out, like the blood's coming down from his bicep. It's very confusing.
But one thing I don't want to skimp on is what. All right, before he commits his fake suicide or fakes his death. Basically, Denzel is up there acting crazy. Did you buy it?
I mean, kind of, because we didn't talk about this, but earlier there's a pretty boring scene at the beginning of the movie, towards the beginning of the movie, where we see Denzel as a prosecutor in a trial, and he's doing his closing argument. And at one point, Denzel's argument is so stupid, too. He's like, "Listen, jury, I know you want to get out of here. Yeah. I know you're tired of hearing about death and murder, but we got to put this guy away.
Hold on a minute while I take my clothes off."
But then but I mean, basically, he does like a version of that in a way, because then he like says, "I know we all just want to get out of here." And then he like pauses, and then Denzel literally yells and screams and like almost like high steps, like he's running out of the courtroom. He's like, "Ah!" And the judge, which is ridiculous, and it's supposed to be Denzel's like, "See, we all want to leave and get out of here and get some fresh air." And then does the judge say anything about like, "Hey, you can't be doing this"? Does the defense attorney say objection? No, nobody says anything. In fact, we pan to the judge's face, and he's giving him like you're such a rapscallion. It's like a Mentos commercial. Like the only thing missing is Denzel pulling out a Mentos.
Right, because he's Nick Stiles, and everything ends up going his way.
So my point is, yes, I buy it because I've already seen him act like a lunatic in court.
Well, I mean, you had that scene, and then you also had the grenade scene that's supposed to show you that. I guess.
Yeah, this guy's a theater kid, basically.
I mean, I was, I was just saying, like, I don't know. I think it takes a certain kind of actor to pull off like crazy and like make it believable. So I mean, and as we said, Denzel is good, but I don't think he's like that kind of actor. You know what I mean? Like the
one thing that took me out of buying it as him being crazy was when he starts putting lipstick on.
Yeah, see, that's so. That's one of those 90s
like, just
cliches.
think about it. Who did he ask his wife for some lipstick? She's like, "What the fuck do you need this for?" And he's like, well, you see, I got this thing I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get up on the roof. I'm gonna act like I'm crazy, and I think what'll really sell it is if I just put on some of that Maybelline red.
See, that's one of those '90s like sort of tropes, almost like the dwarf, if you will. Like,
although when he's up there acting crazy, he's basically yelling that he's guilty of everything he's accused of.
Right.
He yells like, "Oh yeah, I'm into little boys," and I guess maybe because there was lipstick on the councilman.
Yeah,
they had put lipstick on him, so I guess maybe he's like, "Oh, I'm into this." So I think that's what it's really supposed to be.
In the mind of Steve E DeSousa, it makes sense, I guess.
And it makes sense that like Styles would be going crazy, right?
Sure.
Because this whole situation could break a person down, but it does kind of feel like it does come off a little bit like this is a guy that's acting.
Right. Exactly.
But I bought it because that's how he came off to me in the courtroom scene earlier.
Sure. I got you.
So,
all right, let's end this thing. Basically, their whole plan here is to hook up electrodes to the tower, and then see Nick, he brought insulated gloves to this firefight, if you will, or this fisticuffs, and but Earl does not have them because they somehow knew he wouldn't bring gloves because he just didn't have the time to prepare. And so while they're up there, the Ice-T and the noble drug dealers, they flip the switch and it electrocutes Blake, but not enough to make him like fry completely or fall down. Like, I guess they really wanted to have Nick Styles put the final nail.
It just kind of stuns him a little bit. It's like he got hit with a stun gun. And there was so much prep work for them to get this set up because we didn't talk about this. Ice-T's like boys, basically, when the cops show up, they attack the cops from behind and like handcuff them. And this is when Ice-T tells the cops, sorry, officers, we're here with the Assistant District Attorney's Club. And if you don't stay put, we're going to club you or something like that. It's real stupid.
We're here offering assistance. Yeah, like something.
Yeah. And like Ice-T is like laying down like all this like wiring around the perimeter to get it connected to the tower. Like, where did they get this from anyway? But I guess they just happened to have it. So there's all this like crazy setup. And you think like, oh, this is how they're going to kill Blake. Nah, it just kind of stuns him a little bit.
Right. And then Nick causes him to fall and get impaled on another spike.
Nick grabs him by the leg and pulls him down so that he'll fall. Basically kills him on live TV.
Yeah, I mean, Steve E DeSousa wanted him to do it. They didn't want the electricity to fry him and end it.
Yeah. Because we should point out, at this point, media have arrived, and the boys let the media, Ice-T's boys let the media through, because that's what they wanted.
Right.
And I guess they didn't want the cops to interrupt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess they thought maybe the cops might shoot Denzel or whatever. But anyways, yeah, Denzel, the whole plan is that they want the media there to see that Blake is indeed, that's a Third Rock reference, that Blake is indeed alive still. Denzel grabs him by his leg while he's stunned. Could have just had him arrested at this point, but no. Anyways, he falls through a spike like like in Mortal Kombat, that stage where you can uppercut a guy, he'll like fall down into a spike.
The pit, of course, yeah.
Yeah, the pit. Thank you. And then Denzel comes down, and the media wants to interview him. No, the cops aren't going to question him. Apparently, they're not going to arrest him or take him in for questioning or anything. And the media is like, "Hey, Denzel, what do you got to say?" And Denzel's like, "You guys can shove your questions up your ass or something."
No,
I can't remember what he said.
He turns off the camera and somehow the audio.
No, wait, Steve. I am so sorry. Before you get to that, when Lithgow falls through the pit or down into the pit stage of Mortal Kombat, do you remember? And he gets spiked. Do you remember what Denzel said?
I don't.
He says, "Well, Blake, I guess now you get the point."
Oh man, I'm surprised I didn't write that one down.
Yeah, sorry, but continue now. Yeah. Sorry,
So basically, this is the very end of the movie. The blonde reporter, who's the same blonde reporter from Die Hard, is first she's reporting, and then Nick shows up, sort of looming behind her, and she thinks she's gonna get an exclusive. Nick turns off the camera, and she's like, "Nick, you can't do that. We're live." And he's like, you can kiss my ass, news. And then that's the end of the...
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, we're live? You can kiss my ass."
Yeah, and that basically, before we finish up here, that basically makes me wonder, like, do you think there's an underlying anti-media message in Ricochet?
No, I don't think they put that much.
Because there's even a scene there for no reason, and this is basically when Nick comes home to collect his wife and kids to put them in the care of the drug dealers. Which, just saying that just sounds ridiculous. And he sees the news on the TV, and then he pulls the TV down. He's like, and then at the very beginning of the movie, he like tells his daughters, is like, don't watch this stuff. It's just make believe. It's not real. Like that.
No. What he told them is that, how like the shows we watch on TV, how that stuff's not real. Mm-hmm. Well, what they're saying about me on the news isn't real either.
Yeah, because the media is full of crap. Right?
I mean, I don't think that that's really what it meant at all. I think if there's anything that they were trying to get across message-wise is about political corruption. And the reason why I say that is because they make a deal several times about Nick Stiles not wanting to become a politician. Mm-hmm. He makes a comment about how he doesn't want to line other people's pockets with money. And also we see like the DA, his boss is very kind of politically motivated and shrewd in why she makes the decisions she makes. So and the reason why I don't think it's like really anti-media is because everything that's been presented to the media, they have no reason not to think that Stiles is, guilty of all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe it's just showing how easily the media can be manipulated.
If you want to say that, I guess, but I don't really think that that's what they're going for. I don't even think really even the political statement that I said, like at most, I don't even think they were doing that. Like, I don't think that this is the kind of movie with that kind of thought.
See, I mean, I think that Steve E DeSousa had like a theme at the beginning, and then it slowly like just got buried.
It got away from him.
It got buried underneath the wacky dialogue.
Pile of phone books.
Yeah, exactly. So are you ready to render a verdict on Ricochet?
Yeah, let's do it.
Remember how rated. That is the question.
All right, Mr. Velasquez, do you think that Ricochet should be remembered for all of human history or tossed in the black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again?
I'm really torn on this one. Like I said earlier, I definitely think it's too long. It's like an hour and 45 minutes. This should not have been more than 90 minutes, and I think it could have been shorter. I think like an hour and 20 minutes. And that is, I hate when a movie's too long. And I also don't feel like this movie really knows what it wants to be. Like, it's not consistent with being over the top. It's not consistent with being serious. And, it might be, too, that maybe Denzel isn't the right guy for this role, maybe, because he plays it pretty straight for the most part. And I would almost say Lithgow's not hammy enough. He's kind of like plays it straight too, even though the stuff he does is ridiculous. Would I recommend this movie to somebody? No, it's pretty, in my opinion, paint by the numbers at times. It's going to be a no for me, I think.
Oh, wow. Well, I am disappointed. Like, I thought you were going to love this. Like, just because I think it's plenty over the top, but then, I mean, it's clear that they had, talented people working on it. I love the over-the-top direction from Russel Mulchahey, the Steve E DeSousa dialogue. I do think that, that Denzel probably is not the right guy for this role, although I do think he did a good job. I mean, I thought John Lithgow...
That's almost the problem.
Yeah.
Like, he's, like, too good for this.
Yeah, they needed someone hammier. This should have...
I would argue John Lithgow might be too good for this, too.
No, I think he was perfect. But this, back when, I guess, Fred Decker was first pitching this story, he initially wanted it to be a Dirty Harry movie. But then Clint Eastwood turned it down because he said it was too dire.
Okay.
I mean, it's just a fun fact, just letting you know.
Maybe Clint Eastwood didn't want to work out for 3 hours a day.
I think you're probably right.
But Clint Eastwood in a scene playing basketball with Ice-T?
That's money in the bank, baby.
Yeah. I think they missed out there.
I mean, this movie reminded me of a lot of the films that like my dad and I used to watch either in the movie theater or rental. Just over the top, like late '80s, early '90s excess. The plot is a little convoluted, but man, there was some zingers in the dialogue, and I would say watching it a second time, I kind of saw maybe a little more flaws this go around, but I really enjoyed it overall. And if you like over the top, like 90s, like 80s style action, I would recommend it. But looks like we got ourselves a stalemate. So here we go.
It's just in, those pathetic podcasters known as Obscurity Now have once again rendered a verdict of no contest. That's right, a stalemate. They've wasted everyone's time. They are just as lazy as Congress and twice as corrupt. Boo, I say, tar and feather 'em. Get out the guillotine. Boo to stalemate, and boo to Obscurity Now.
All right.
So I guess, Steve, I was just reading that little like interview where John Lithgow talks about the character from Ricochet, Earl Blake, and I guess he is supposed to be racist because he said there is no more hateful or racist role than Earl Talbot Blake. I mean, it was just a completely vile, hideous character, and fans always use the word love. I guess it was just because I went all the way with that role. It was one of those instances where you play a role with the specific intention of making everybody hate you, and I just did it fearlessly. And it just made it into this kind of terrifying, overheated drama, right down to Earl's very pointed demise.
Bravo, Mr. Lithgow. Anything else to add before we sign off here?
No, I think I'm good. I'm sorry I didn't enjoy the film. I just wish it would have been like more over the top and less. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that like is very boring and mundane in the movie. Like that courtroom scene, honestly, it's pretty boring. The telethon stuff is pretty boring. Anytime like Styles is just chit-chatting with the councilman, like I don't care. So that's
Hey, as long as you gave your honest answer, that's all that matters.
Hey, it was better than Surf Ninjas Must Die or whatever, Nazi Ninjas Must Die.
Why do you have to bring up the surf Nazis? Why? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that is our show for this week. Make sure you subscribe if you made it all the way this way. Why not? And share and like and all that other great stuff. And if you happen to be at Long Beach Comic-Con, stop by and say hello. I'll have stickers, and you can pay $500 for the only copy of physical Obscurity Now media, because it's one of a
I like
kind.
how it's the best of. It says it's the best of, but there's only one show. That implies we only had one that was really good.
Right. Well, I wanted to do the Youngblood one, but it was just too big for the CD, unfortunately.
But Rob Liefeld wouldn't allow it.
Yeah, he
sent a cease and desist.
With the kibosh. And yes, and if you're wondering why I'm going to a Comic-Con, it's to sell Escape to Earth, which there will be a promo at the end of the episode. So until next time, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next Sunday as we continue to unearth even more obscure media only on Obscurity Now. See you next week. I'm having a weird day. The name's Adam. Where I'm from, I'm known as the Zero Thief. Depending on who you ask, some might say I'm the best thief. But believe it or not, even the best screws up every once in a while, and that's what I did, and I had to make a fast getaway. I ended up crash landing on this bizarre planet. Turns out, I didn't get away fast enough. These winged freaks followed me here.
It's just us here, Zero Thief, on this empty backwoods planet. So start talking, either to me or my blade.
Okay, I do have something to tell you. It's about the planet. It's not that empty. Come on, man. I thought you were gonna duck. Cut me loose. Cut me loose. Behind you. Whoa. Thought I was done for. it was going to be a light snack for a snarling creature. But then, she showed up, riding on the back of one of those monsters like it was nothing. And with a wave of her hand, the other razor-toothed beast just stomped away. I'd never seen anyone like her before in my life. I thought I'd say something clever. Thanks, have you seen my ship? She gave me a look that said more than words ever could, because I think she was trying to read my mind or something. And from there, things just got even weirder. Escape to Earth. 36 pages of insane dinosaur action. Issue 1 available now at reptilianmedia.bigcartel.com, featuring a variant cover by Sean Forney. Act now while supplies last. You've been enjoying Obscurity Now, a podcast that's recorded live to tape and streamed to Twitch and YouTube. Subscribe so you never miss an episode or hilarious quip. Take us with you by following the download links provided in the show notes to wherever you get podcasts. And take notice of our various social media links. If that's what you're into, I'm not here to judge. And make sure you join us live next week at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific as we continue to discuss more obscure media only on Obscurity Now.